We are here today to discuss a very important topic with Sam.
I want to talk about how couples who are fighting and couples who are separating can damage their children through their behavior.
Do you see it a lot in your practice?
Yes. I have a lot of parents coming to me who are fighting, sometimes they have a long ongoing Cold War, or sometimes there is just a tension in the air all the time, or very huge dissatisfaction. But then also sometimes there are loud fights, they swear, they scream, in worst case they hit each other. Unfortunately, couples who are fighting, they usually lose the sense for what they do to their children. They're so busy with their own feeling of hurt and need to defend and to attack, and they're so busy with that the children are not seen in their needs for stability, for protection, for having a stable environment.
Do they come just like as couples that have problems, or do they come specifically because they feel they're damaging kids? Or
no, very, very rarely they come out of the first reason. The first reason would be like, we are fighting but we don't know how we can protect our children. Actually, to be honest, I don't even know if I ever hear that. They come, they want to, whatever, resolve their fight, or I have to prove them that the partner is an idiot or something like that. That's what they wish. But it's always me who says like, okay, but no, first, that's always the first thing, like, what can we do to protect the children? So you're going through a very strainful time. There's a lot of instability in the house. The children are exposed to your fights. And now the first thing we have to do is we have to find ways that you do not have these outbursts, this emotional crisis in front of the children. So I demand you to help me with that. And so many times I have to force their focus back on the children because they are not there. And if both partners love their children, and care for them, you can usually manage that they come to the point where they realize like, okay, this is now more important than what we are doing. Not always, sometimes it's not possible.
So you're trying to help them to find a way how they can kind of resolve their issues, not in front of the kid.
There are this. I can talk about this a different time. I have some methods to help them to prevent conflicts developing into fights, for example.
What can be?
No, but I don't want to talk about it now because that will take a long time.
Okay.
But there were moments when I strongly suggested a couple to not live together for a time being while we work, because whenever they come home they are just cat and dog.
Yeah, fighting.
So they come back, they cannot be under the same roof, they need to take distance and meta-level position to start to understand what's going on.
And what about the kid?
And then, we have to very pragmatically find solution, like who is staying with the children, or are you taking turns in living with them, or whatever is the best. It's never optimal. It's never, it's you try to do the best harm reduction possible. And also we talk about how much they shall involve the children in what's going on, but not giving the children information which the children cannot process, and also how they can appear to the children as a good parent team, yet maybe not being happy with each other as partners, but yet they show the children that whatever happens, we are the parents and we stay the parents.
What kind of impact do you see on kids?
So first of all, so many parents do not understand the horrifying impact it has when very strong fights, loud fights, emotional outbursts in front of the children. They just, they sometimes think the child can process this like an adult. And this is completely wrong. Already babies are hyper sensitive for the atmosphere, although the babies do not understand it, but they have two parents and the baby loves both parents, and now suddenly these loving parents start to have a fight, so it brings a lot of tension. And what happens with many babies is that they start to be silent. They are silent because it's too much. They don't know what to do with this. They cannot process this instability, and this is something which parents should be really sensitive for and always have an eye. And when there are children around and they start, one parent should say like, we cannot do that. I'm leaving now. Do something to detach from the source of stress for protecting the children. Older children, when they're older, they try to make sense. They try to understand what is going on with my parents. Why are they fighting? And then there are many different ways of how a child can respond to it. For example, one form of response can be that the child is starting to search for the reason within himself and start to feel guilty for things it shouldn't feel guilty, and things like maybe I'm not good enough child, and tries then to be extra nice to both parents to kind of show like that everything should stay the way it is.
Kid wants to fix the situation usually, yeah.
A very frequent response of a child is that the child is developing symptoms like eating disorder or bedwetting or anxieties and or learning disability, learning difficulties. And this form of symptoms, they can have two reasons. One reason is to, through the symptoms, to distract the parents' attention towards each other, to take the tension on themselves, like take the focus on themselves. So as long the parents are busy with me, they are not fighting. That's the one reason. And the other reason is the symptoms are my language, because I cannot express myself with words. I cannot say, or I'm not heard. So these symptoms, and sometimes they can also be like psychosomatic symptoms, like illnesses, stomach ache, headache, anything. So my body is talking for me and shows that I'm not well. I'm doing something is not right with me.
It's a way of managing stress, right? Okay.
And sometimes the children are you cannot see it from outside. They're smiling all the time. They're nice all the time. They're just kind of tiptoeing around everything because they don't want to cause any more stress. Another way of responding of a child is that the child sees the parents fighting and it feels in charge to stop the fight, so that the child might interfere, standing in between both parents, or trying to protect one parent from the other one, or pleading, please stop. And also this is something overwhelming, overburdening for a child. And I had a lot of clients who remember, because I usually ask my clients for the most negative moment they can remember from their childhood, and that's very frequent, that clients say like, I remember my parents were fighting and I tried to get into the center of it, and then this and this happened. So that's a very stressful and horrifying thing for a child. Another very frequent response of the child can be that the child starts to withdraw and tries to, lock himself into his room or be always outside of the house, and starts to drift into his imagined world, of fantasy world, or in nowadays with these computer games, of
Games,
course,
yeah.
then they are just in behind the computer, and they then also detach from life and from reality, and in the long term this can also have a horrible damaging impact on the child. So these are different forms of response of a child whose parents are fighting, and again these fights can have different forms. They can be loud, they can be silent, there can be silent treatment of one parent to the other parent, can sometimes take days or weeks when they do not talk with each other.
Yeah.
It's too much to process for a child. It can have damage which is temporary, and the child later can process it. It can also be traumatic, and it stays with the child for the rest of his life. But I just want to make here something very clear. Your children didn't choose to be with you. You chose to have them in your life. And despite of the pain someone is going through, and the anger and the disappointment you have with your life and with your partner, and you are in charge to provide your child with a safe, stable, loving and encouraging environment that helps the child to develop into a strong, self-confidence, loving, respectful, capable person himself. It has the highest, it's higher than your personal feeling of hurt and wrench.
But when you say this to a couple, do you see that they kind of awake and they feel that they need to do something about it? In most cases.
I think I'm a very tolerant and understanding couple counselor. You know, if there is one partner who is cheating on the other one, I would never give him the feeling like you are the bad guy. You know, I never do that. I never have any moral statements as far, of course, if there is like physical abuse of one partner to the other. Even then, I'm not moralizing. I just say like we have to do something about it because it cannot happen anymore. But I'm really free of moralizing. Only then I am. And then I'm really strong. I'm angry with them. I show them and I force them to say like, just imagine you are your child and you're looking at your scenery now. What do you think the child feels? You know, and then I push them, I push them to observe their children and tell me what is going on with them. If they sense any symptoms, if the child is asking any questions, if it's withdrawing, if it's whatever, and then we talk about what could be the reasons for that. So now we were talking about a child observing the parents fighting and then reacts in one or the other way. And then there is the even worse case is parents pulling the child within. They involve the child into the fight, and one parent might try to influence the child against the other parent for having the child's side, and also for punishing the other parent by having an alliance there. And this is, of course, something absolutely unacceptable.
And it happens very often, isn't it?
It happens very often. And, you know, it's unacceptable, but it's understandable if it comes in the heat of the moment. You know, let's say a very hurt mother because the husband was unfaithful, and now she's just drawn in pain. She's just found out, and then the child comes and says, "Mommy, what's going on?" And then she's loading all this shit on the child, which she shouldn't. But in the heat of the moment, and later she comes to counseling, and you say like, you know, okay, you have done this, but now let's look how we can get out of this, because maybe your husband was cheating on you, which is very painful for you, but he might be still a good father, a loving father, and if you if you turn your child's, you're messing with your child's feeling for the father who gave the child so much stability and love. You're messing with his feelings and with his mind if you start to demonize the partner.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot do that. So you have to distinguish between your struggles you have with your partner and respecting him as a loving parent. This many times, fortunately, these are usually parents who you can talk into reason, and when their personal feeling of revenge and hurt is a bit, fading away, they can come to reason and they can talk with their partner and say like, okay, I think you're a piece of shit, but I think you're a good parent.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate you, but you're a good parent, so I respect that, and I want us to cooperate as parents.
But do you see it often, or like, how do you see it with couple? Can you talk to them and they are responsive, or what do you do?
Well, I learned through the years when I was 15 years ago or 20 years ago, when I had such kind of couples, I was much milder. I was much like, please, and now I'm a fucking pain in the ass. I really show them. I say like, if you claim you're good parents, prove me. Prove me that you're good parents. I want to see proof, because now you're not. And you can change that, and you can change it immediately. And I want, if you want to work here, want to work these things out, you have to prioritize your parenthood, your position as parent, and you have to protect your children now, right now, starting now. And then we sit together and we say like, this and this and this has to be done. That's how you can, for example, let's say they were already fighting a lot in front of the children, and they realize the children are full of questions and they don't know what to do with this. And then we would together look like, how can they sit together with the children as a parent team and tell the children, we know that you were exposed, we are so sorry for that, how can you apologize? And also say like, we very much like each other as parents, and we want to stay your parents, and we will always be there for you as your parents. To isolate this, to demark this and say like, we are fighting, we are unhappy with each other, we now go to counseling, we will work it through, but it's not, has nothing to do with us being parents for you. To distinguish that, and then they can be a team despite of the bad feelings they have for each other. If they are more or less sane people, they will do it. You need to be really, you need to have some kind of a disorder or something that you do not see that how important this is at the moment.
And how can you help a kid? Do you bring them to counseling, or?
Rarely. I'm not really a counselor for children, but sometimes, I see the children, and it's very good when they can open up. And when I see the children, I always make clear to the child that this is confidential, that what you can tell me everything, really everything, everything, and I will only, with the allowance of the child, share this later to the parents. I will, before talk with the child, what can I share with the parents? And if the child says like nothing, I will respect it, although it's sometimes really painful to respect. But the child must be totally feeling safe for talking as freely as it can. And then maybe not in the first session, but in the second session, it starts to really open up, and you see what are the fears behind, and also then what would be the wish of the child, and maybe the child wishes that parents will come together, but I know it will not happen, and then I help the child to process this, which maybe I can do better than the parents, because I'm not in that way attached to the child, or the child is not that attached to me, so it's not, can help it to see it more from the distance and to understand that there can be something good coming out. I can tell the child of many couples I know who could separate in peace and or start to be cooperative and start to support each other as parents for being good parents. And yet they didn't remain friends. Sometimes they even, they become friends. Once we were a couple, now we're friends. You have a new boyfriend, I have a new girlfriend. Fine. It's possible. Adult people can do such things. Adult, mature, self-confident people can do such things.
I just wanted to ask you, what will be your message to couples that are fighting and then have kids?
Step a step back. Go to a counselor. If you feel like it's such a struggle, we cannot connect, even so we should take our parts as parents together, go to a counselor who helps. Find measures which are practical. Like, how do we live? How can we live together that we do not fight in front of the children? How can we demonstrate to the children that we are good with each other as parents, and we support this idea that we are parents, we want to be parents? How much information can we give to the children which is possible for the children to process? How can we appear to the children as a team? How can we do things together without coming into fights? Sometimes also, how can we approach the children that they open up? No, that's actually very important, to see okay, who has maybe the better approach to the child for when would be a good time to talk with the child and say look, I'm aware that you were seeing a lot of fights lately, and that must be really, really difficult for you. And start to talk with the child and just try to help the child to open up and talk about its feelings. And do not try to belittle the situation, it's nothing, because maybe it is really serious. Children are not stupid. When they see that the parents are really, really unhappy together and it's already going on for a long time. You have to be honest with the children. You have to say, yes, it's true. Your father and I, we are not happy with each other as a couple. Yes, we are fighting sometimes about things, and it's true, and we try to fix it. We try to solve it. Now we go and seek for help. That's always good to say. But I like your father as a father. He's a great father, and he likes me as a mother, and we stay together as your parents always. Children are very adaptable creatures. Actually, they can adapt into the various situations, but you have to help them to do so. I don't think that you should provide your child with atmosphere which is always harmonic, and there are no fights, and there is only love and care. And so, of course, sometimes you fight, and sometimes you're frustrated, and sometimes you're getting loud, and sometimes parents have disagreements. It's part of life. If the child feels that there is a basic love and care and affirmation that we are family, we want to stay together, and then there is a fight, and then maybe even tears, but then the child can also see that the parents can resolve it. The parents can also go to the child and say, so sorry for that, what happened, don't worry about it. We will solve it. And then the child can process this really good, and actually the child is then better prepared for life when it knows conflict can happen, fights can happen. Conflicts are anyways always, and fights, unfortunately sometimes, and but you can get through it, you can find solutions, you can move on, you can apologize, you can do a lot of things. So this child is better prepared for life than the child who lives in a cotton cloud of lovey-dovey happiness, which is not real.
Yeah.
And then later, when it's exposed to fights, it's just freezing because it doesn't know what to do with it.
We will expand on this
much
topic.
more coming about that. Next time, I would like to talk about separating parents and how they many times damage consciously or unconsciously the child through their separation. For example, by alienating the child from the other partner. This is one way of doing that. And so I will talk about this, and that will be a very important video. I hope you will watch it.